Just 1 second. We'll get some water and then we'll start.
Yeah.
Two people have filled the form and somebody and just in money won't have to pay just the form. So I sent them a sample email to say, you fill the form, thanks for doing it, but you need to also make a payment of 25 pounds. Right, Emma, let's start. Sorry to keep you holding. So today we're going to be looking at obviously going ahead with learning outcome 2. And in learning outcome 2, what we are looking at covering is primarily the use of artificial intelligence. Now, as you recall, during the unit introduction, I mentioned that when we look at this unit, there are lots of development and emerging technologies in the IT and computing field. So what we will do is focus on a few of them as we go along. So the first one, generically, we looked at what are the developments happening in this field. And now in the second one, we are going to be looking at the artificial intelligence. So here there are 5 assessment criteria. One of them looks at understanding the term artificial intelligence. Then we'll be looking at where it is used, and then what are the benefits to this society, what are the concerns of AI, and obviously how it can be used in the future. There's a fair bit of content to be looked at because obviously when we look at each of the assessment criteria, we'll be looking at focusing on areas related to usages and concerns, which could be privacy, bias, inequality, safety. A lot of people are talking about concepts related to that AI will become smarter than humans and it can inflict damage and potentially be harmful, but we will look at debating, and this is an ongoing debate. And then when we look at future emerging trends within artificial intelligence, we are looking at obviously big data, the use of AI, which is already happening in a big way in robotics, and obviously the Internet of Things, which is leading to automation and increased workforce productivity, specifically in businesses and certain sectors like engineering, manufacturing, and production. Now, let's start off with the key terminology, which is what is artificial intelligence. Now, AI, when we look at artificial intelligence, there are lots of definitions of artificial intelligence, and one of them that I normally look at talking about is from a point of view of something which has been developed by humans, and this particular technology and let's put it this way, intelligence is normally going to be used in machines to be able to make them more productive. But in general, when we look at the definition of artificial intelligence, I see this as a combination of a lot of things. So artificial intelligence is nothing but machines trying to simulate or, in some way or the other, simulate human intelligence. So if I say the word artificial intelligence, it is nothing but simulation of human intelligence by machine, one of the simplest definitions. The other way would be that when we look at the concept of AI in a bit more detail, what we are going to be looking at is that AI essentially looks at learning, reasoning, problem solving. It also looks at perceptive technologies. It looks at understanding different languages, and then can also be looking at use in decision making. Now, AI depends, the way AI is programmed and the way algorithms and, the programming for this particular, I would say, programming is done. What we see is that it is using a number of facets of human reasoning and learning, and they would tend to include things like existing knowledge. It'll include reasoning, problem solving, and obviously, in some cases, it will also look at, the way we do prompting. It'll also look at understanding our language. And the main reason why this is being used and developed by humans is to try and help machines undertake the process of decision making. Now, sometimes we have uh, over the years, as the field has developed, what we've also seen is the AI has also been classified into different types. One of them is called the narrow AI. Narrow means it is designed for a specific task. Now, if I look at artificial intelligence, it was present maybe 5, 6 years back as well in some shape or form. So if you look at the use of Siri on your phone in terms of Google Play Store, you look at Amazon Alexa, these are only voice assistants, but they have the ability to be able to understand your voice, ask, comprehend what question or what you're asking, and they were able to respond from a repository or a database which was programmed, and give you logical answers out of that. So when we say, "Hey Siri," it basically looks at responding back to you, and it says, "Uh-huh," or you want to ask a question, it could do that. So this form of AI, when it started to come out, I would say 5, 6 years back, with the different kind of concepts like Amazon Alexa, you look at Siri, Google Play Assistant, you look at smart devices using it at home, wherein voice could be used as a ploy to look at doing specific tasks. This was called narrow AI, and that is where we see essentially beginnings of AI coming in. Then what we see over the years is general AI. Now, general AI is basically human intelligence or human level intelligence, I would put it this way. And this means that the AI is now capable of doing a range of different tasks, which could be theoretical as well as practical. And that is why we call it general AI. That means it is near to or equal to human intelligence in terms of its level. Now, the current debate which is going on in the market and obviously amongst companies, governments is super intelligent AI. Now, as artificial intelligence gathers more mass and obviously is able to assimilate more information, and it is being trained and programmed in a way wherein it can also look at hypothetical situations, it can help in decision making, and it also understands and comprehends the way you speak and you prompt, thereby generating human-like language processing, or as we say, natural language processing, which is a term NLP that we use in voice recognition software and other type of softwares. What you're going to be able to see in that case is the use of intelligent AI. And intelligent AI essentially means that it is able to look at hypothetical situations, comprehend, and then answer questions or queries which can lead to decision making. And it uses what is called natural language processing, which basically now allows it to cover all the aspects of human intelligence. And that is why it is also sometimes called as super intelligent AI. And this is the current reason of debate amongst governments. And as I mentioned, various places wherein AI by 2030, as some estimates and people are saying, is that it is going to be far more intelligent than humans, and it will be able to do most of the jobs that humans do because of the fact that it is able to look at NLP, it is able to look at hypothetical situations, and it is able to look at decision making just like humans do. And that is why when we look at the definition of AI in particular, it would be that we would look at AI in a form of what is called 3 or 4 different types. And this classification can vary in terms of how this would be done on the industry type or industry sector type. Now, on the slide, as you can see, I have put across 4 types of artificial intelligence. Now, when I say 4 types of artificial intelligence and I look at the categorization of AI, what I do see is machines which are, reactive machines, not reactive, reactive machines. So reactive machines would be wherein these are machines which are using intelligence to be able to carry out certain functions. And these functions can be specific, to the type of input which is being provided or how they are being programmed. So these could be machines like, when I talk about reactive machines, IBM Deep Blue, which is the first supercomputer created, which also defeated Anatoly, Kasparov in the chess, game, because it was able to do petabytes or, floating transaction, pentillion floating transactions to be able to calculate all possible moves, is an example that IBM Deep Blue, as a reactive machine, is able to play chess, is able to defeat Gary Kasparov, and it could analyze and look at anticipating possible moves and the best possible choices that the person is going to make basis its previous game and its previous memory, or the information which has been fed into the intelligence. So why is it called reactive? Because it is going to use previous or past knowledge to be able to do predictive modeling, to be able to see what could be the moves which a person would do, in this case, as an example, when it was playing chess with Gary Kasparov. Now, when we look at limited memory, what do we mean by limited memory? Again, there are AI systems which are deployed in manufacturing and production, and these systems depend on past data. The more data that you give to them, which has been proven in the past or is available from calculations or is available from previous transactions, would be useful for these machines to look at, updating transactions. And they basically thrive on storing information which could be used and compared from the past data to come in, or let's put it this way, historical data, and that would allow them to imagine or give results basis predictive modeling. Now, limited memory would be an example, if I have to give you, is self-driving cars. Now, the more data the self-driving cars create and generate, and routes that they go on to, it is able to remember that this is the route, or this is the route that I need to take, and these are the obstacles which come or hurdles which come, which I need to be careful about. But if there are changes which happen to that route, then in that case, you have to again train it, because you need the car to be moving through that terrain and the cameras and other things to adjust to the fact that there have been changes introduced on the route. So here they would work on the basis of limited memory or past data to be able to make decisions. Theory of mind essentially is looking at, I would say, developmental concepts. If I put it this way, these developmental concepts would typically be either theoretical models, or there are models which are being developed from a point of view of future developments and anticipation in terms of future development. So here, the theory of mind is essentially focused on understanding human emotions, beliefs, intentions, and thoughts. And that is where the AI is becoming perceptive to language understanding, because when it reads our facial expressions, your body language, your emotions, your beliefs, and intentions, then AI is able to then socially interact and integrate with humans. So here, example of this would be, which is currently now happening in robotics, in Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and so the institutions in Japan are actually creating a robot dog, for example, or they are creating robots which are essentially able to emulate human functions when working within factory or manufacturing conditions. And in such cases, when the intelligence is able to recognize human emotions, beliefs, intentions, and thoughts, then it will be called, categorized as theory of mind. The last is self-aware. That means this is where the AI will become conscious and will have self-awareness basis its past experiences, predictive modeling, decision making, and human emotions that it is able to understand. And in such cases, this would surpass the human intelligence, is what we are looking at. So that means AI, if you give a command, it will, is sometimes what happens is, I'll give you a simple example. At home, if I'm asking something to Alexa, which is the Amazon speaker, or Siri, and if they don't understand something, sometimes you get frustrated and you say, okay, shut up. Okay, just, thank you, shut up. Now it reacts to you. It says, my apologies that I'm not able to answer your question, but in order for me to help and improve, could you please elaborate? Or sometimes you use an abusive word or use a slang or a slur, they are able to recognize and they then either respond to you in a very professional manner, or they would say, I just don't understand what you're saying. So this part of it is where AI is becoming self-aware. And when you have this kind of an AI which is self-aware, then it starts to respond to you in a philosophical way when questions are, or when the prompting that you do is not in line with what it has been programmed with. So it uses your logic and it uses the decision making ability to look at doing a scientific debate with you to a certain extent. And that is where what you are going to see is that AI is going to become self aware. Now, these are some examples that I've taken. And obviously, when you look at a simple example of an AI currently right now, there are lots of applications which allow you to I would put it this way, create your emails as drafts, and these emails then can be stored in your drafts folder, depending on, agents or chatbots which have been created. So they are being deployed all across, to read emails, to respond to emails, to look at automating certain conventional tasks like your social media post, or for example, answering certain social media posts, driverless cars, and Siri and Alexa, which are also termed as smart assistants, which can allow people with disabilities or challenges to ask questions verbally to be able to get information from the use of AI.
Mm.
So in our remit, obviously AI again is a very big topic, but because of our remit of learning outcome 2, we need to basically understand what is AI, types of AI, benefits of AI, challenges because of AI, and what are the major trends coming in when we look at advancements happening in the field of AI. So it starts off with the basic definition of understanding what is artificial intelligence, categorizing it into different types, and then looking at a few working examples to understand where it is being used. So it is not something futuristic as a tech, it is something that we are using on a day-to-day basis, whether it's talking about smart speakers, whether it's talking about using gadgets that you can wear, or whether it's talking about technology that we can use like driverless cars or cars sometimes which have lots of different functions within them. And one of the things which I like to point out in cars is that certain category of cars, which is because of the AI being built in, they are able to self-park when you go to a shopping mall or a place. So you drive past once, it senses with its cameras where the parking spaces are, and then you choose one of the spaces, it'll self-park the car in that space. And these are examples of how AI is being implemented in different areas, in different parts of the world, and obviously in different sectors related to functioning. Now, let's go into a bit more detail by looking at discussing some of the assessment criteria. Now, when we do talk about, artificial intelligence, the basic definition of what encompasses what AI is, wherein it understands these 4 different types, machine learning, natural language processing, robotics, autonomous vehicles, and obviously the ability to be able to be self-aware and comprehend things, which is where it becomes self-conscious and also is able to react and discuss or have scientific debate. That would be I would say the basic and detailed definition of what is artificial intelligence. So when we talk about intelligence, which can simulate human intelligence, that would be termed as or referred to as what is called artificial intelligence. Now, what are the various types? We've discussed that in a bit of detail already, which is reactive, limited, theory of mind, and self-aware. And these categories are continuously evolving. That means there are further developments which are happening within these categories all the time, as this is a field which is currently, is currently showing a lot of, development and obviously a lot of curiosity from people, scientists. I would put it this way, a lot of different types of people are actually putting in a lot of work to be able to make this field a bit better, because at the end of the day, this particular field, advancements in this particular field are essentially going to benefit humankind. Now,
Yeah.
if I look at going into a bit of history where it all started. Alan Turing, who's an English scientist, is given the credit normally, for essentially starting this process of, naming or talking about artificial intelligence. So his research around computers and trying to build machines which were able to do automation or automates repetitive tasks in the early 50s essentially led to the creation of what is called, um, artificial intelligence. And if you look at the history or some sort of a timeline in terms of, what this timeline looks like as far as artificial intelligence is concerned, we do see that, it started off with Boolean mathematics, which was essentially used to create circuitry, and this circuitry saw its initial beginnings or initial usages of it, in, I would say, industrial machines. And these industrial machines then allowed certain types of automations to essentially happen, and thereby this automation, made certain repetitive tasks, I would say, easier. So when we do talk about, the timeline from where we started to track, we look at the introduction of Boolean mathematics to create circuits. These were then programmed using Pascal and COBOL or some of the initial programming languages to create chips or circuit boards, which were essentially used in machines to be able to automate certain tasks. Then we see Alan Turing's work related to computing, and obviously this work in computing and creation led to the creation of computers in the subsequent decades. But that is where we see some part of AI and history of AI actually originating from. We also have 1956, wherein artificial intelligence as a topic started being, discussed amongst various such, scholars and scientists. And then we do see, things like early programming coming into play, which tried out and tested logic and logic-related programming, finally leading to, the advent of what is called uh, early computers, which we get to see, which was the size of this room, or large rooms, but they were essentially used within production and manufacturing facilities to be able to do repetitive tasks. And early in the 1980s, with Microsoft, IBM producing desktop computers, we do get to see that some of this started to take shape. Now, they led to maybe the discovery of what is called the operating system, which was used to drive and power some of these machines. Initially, it was the disk operating system, DOS as we call it, but later on, Microsoft introduced the operating system, which was GUI, that means graphical user interface based, and that started to speed up the developments which were happening essentially in the computing and IT side of the industry. And we do see computers coming out, laptops coming out, and in the early 1990s, when internet introduced the HTTP protocol introduced by Sir Tim Berners-Lee, actually led to the creation of what is called the commercial internet that we see again, and that allowed a lot of further developments to happen. So we do see a bit of history. It might be a bit blurred, but we can relate that these are the developments which have led to the creation of artificial intelligence as of today. So if you were to do a search and see, what is the history of artificial intelligence, it will somehow be related to Boolean mathematics and the discovery of or proposition of computing by Alan Turing in the early 50s. So if you look at the history of artificial, let me see if I can bring out a table, a more detailed table in terms of its history. But generally, this would be the timeline that we get to see what I have put across, on the slide essentially. Now, in terms of understanding how AI works, obviously we need to look at how it works is it goes into various domains of learning, thinking, reasoning, and also to a certain extent, as I mentioned, perception and decision making, and that allows the process of logical reasoning to be put into place. And this is where what we will see is that artificial AI or artificial intelligence starts to work using this particular area of functions or these particular functions. So when we do talk about how AI works, if I look at how AI works, and if I look at drawing up a table, essentially say, one second, let me see if I can look at the table. What I would suggest is that when we do talk about its working and where it works, and then look at an example of how it works, we could start with something as very basic as what is called data collection. Now, sometimes when you use ChatGPT or any of these models which have come out like DeepSeek, NGN8, or Make, and lots of different applications, what we do get to see is that they start by collecting data. You have to do some prompting, and you have to basically look at giving them some data to be able to work on, to be able to produce some meaningful output. Now, when we look at data and data which is given to these models, essentially what it starts to do is by collecting data, it starts to do what is called data remodeling or reprocessing. And these reprocessing of data then leads to, I would say, some sort of meaningful information being synthesized from the data which is provided. Now, a simple example that I would give you here is Tesco. We discussed yesterday, introduced a Tesco Club Card program. And that was one of the automations that they did because they wanted to keep track of transactions, what the consumers are buying, and obviously start sending out offers which were tailored to what the consumer previous pattern of buying was or purchase history was. Now, when we look at this as an option, typically AI in this case would come in to start looking at analyzing the data, and that analysis of data would start to throw up offers, products which the customers buy, and that would be tailored in the form of newsletter or some sort of a post, which will be a direct mail that will go across to the customer's house or postal address. So if I go to Tesco and I shop, say for example, within 52 weeks or 1 year, I shop at Tesco's probably about 40 weeks in the year, they would have a lot of data to be able to tally and see what am I buying, what type of products am I buying, what is the frequency at which I'm buying these products, and what is the money that I'm spending per weekly shop that I'm doing at Tesco's. And when you look at this as a data, this data can be further crunched, analyzed, and synthesized into what is called information, which the company could use and then send it out to the customers so that it pushes them to buy more or spend more within their stores. And this could be done in the form of what is called newsletters. But what is it that they have to crunch? They have to crunch and look at data and processing of data, which could be data coming in from the last 2 years of weekly shopping that you have done, how your pattern of shopping has changed, how your basket has changed, how the spending is changing in your shopping that you're doing. And this continuous analysis of data is being used by the software to deploy and obviously come up with promotional offers which are tailored to your shopping list, would be the application of AI. So at some stage, artificial intelligence would look at collecting, processing, and then coming out with meaningful trends which will help the CRM software, for example, to send out emailers or offers to you, which they know would help in promoting, say, for example, more sale of their products, depending on what you've been buying as far as weekly shops are concerned. So in general, when we look at AI looks at collecting data, analyzing data, remodeling data, which is one aspect of it. Then it also looks at learning from that data set in terms of taking out useful information which it feels would be synthesized from that data set. And then it deploys that information that it is collected by analyzing that data to be able to send you meaningful offers via newsletters, vouchers, coupon, or via email. Because the software has analyzed your previous purchase history and how you're buying, bespoke offers or tailored offers would allow it to, you know, it would basically allow it to send those bespoke and tailored offers so that you are able to do more shopping or more of the similar shopping that you love doing at Tesco's in each of your weekly trips, thereby increasing the amount of sales which the company gets by selling those products to you as a consumer. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Now, when it starts to do that, it starts to look at a couple of concepts that we would want to bring in. So one is machine level learning, which basically means that it is able to analyze data and come out with inferences or end results of that analysis of data. And that allows it to reach conclusions of what would be the best offers for the customer. In addition to that, when we look at deep learning is obviously a machine learning technique which essentially teaches the software to understand various routes through which you go through for the process of decision making. And then this is an example like a flow charting technique. So if I take this route, I might reach Tesco in 10 minutes, but if I take this route, I might face traffic jam. But if there is no traffic, I might reach in 8 minutes. This particular process of through which it is able to make assisted decision making and also able to use previous data to predict the outcome of what path you're going to take to go to what, say, for example, path or distance would you be willing to travel to go to Tesco's would essentially again be a part of how artificial intelligence or AI would work. And then it talks about neural networks, which are similar. Like in the human brain, there are what are called neurons. Now, each of these 4 billion neurons are connected to each other, and they
Yeah.
help in either creating memories, recalling information, or in some cases, essentially help in directing what steps or actions humans are taking. But it's all controlled by the brain. So neural networks in this case for artificial intelligence act as neural cells or neurons in the case of humans. They would be looking at using a series of algorithms to capture and conduct various type of calculations uh, depending on various variables, but they would essentially be carrying out calculations to be able to come out with meaningful outcomes. So if I say 2 plus 2 is 4 and I use a calculator to calculate that, it'll do some calculations in the background using Boolean mathematics. And what it will do is predict that the answer is going to be 4. But can you reach 4 in any other way? If you have to do so, yes, you can. So you do 1 plus 1 plus 2, that is also 4. You'll say 1 plus 3, which is also 4. You'll do 3 plus 1 is also 4. You'll have 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, which is also 4. Now, these kind of calculations, which are being done in the background, which are very similar to how a human mind works, would be essentially what are a part of artificial intelligence neural network, or essentially the brain activity side of things. NLP, as I mentioned to you earlier, is the ability where the software or the machine is able to gain the ability to be able to respond, speak, and obviously interpret. I would say interpret information just like humans do. And in such cases, when a machine has the ability to use natural language processing, which is nothing but the ability to imitate humans, then in such cases, it is able to better communicate and obviously better provide functions that the machine is expected to do because it is able to interface with human type of emotions and reactions, thereby allowing artificial intelligence to work very closely or work very closely like humans in certain situations. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Now, we also have what is called computer vision, which are algorithms primarily written. For example, if you look at ChatGPT, when you look at Midjourney or DALI, wherein it is able to create images basis just instructions that you give. You say, okay, I want an image to be created of McDonald's with somebody as a person carrying it from New Times Square. You give it that instruction, and what DALI will do is essentially look at creating a hypothetical image basis the description you have, I would say, given. Now, when you look at this description, there is some programming done which is done in the background, and that programming allows the command or the prompting that you're doing to be interpreted in a way with the use of another software that allows it to create that image. And then you have cognitive computing, which basically uses algorithms to mimic decision-making ability, which like humans do. So we work on a flow charting technique. You say, okay, if you do this, you would go yes. If you don't meet this, it'll be a no. Then, for example, a simple case would be, how do you shortlist a candidate after taking an interview in the organization? You start with a bit of a yes, no kind of a flow chart. You say, okay, there's a vacancy, candidate applies for the job. You look at scrutinizing a CV. If there are relevant features or functions and experience which are related to the job, you would ask the candidate to come in and interview. If the candidate CV does not provide you enough insight into features, skills, or prior experience that the candidate has, you might refuse the candidate. So it says no, and then you throw the candidate or the trash that particular CV. So in such cases, when we look at algorithms which are developed to be able to imitate human activity by looking at scientific decision making, then in such cases, things like speech, text, and images, which will be utilized to make that decision, would essentially fall under what is called cognitive computing. Now, there's a very good article which I would suggest that you should read after this session. And this particular article, for which I've given this link, also explains in a great amount of detail what is AI, how does it work, and what does it provide essentially to a user in terms of advantages, benefits that we need to cover in this particular that we need to, I would say,
Unit.
cover in this particular learning outcome. So if I show you that for a second, the article, I think this is what the article is, which is called What is Artificial Intelligence, Types, History, and Example. So this particular article covers some part of what we are discussing in a bit more detail, but at the same time also giving you direct information about some of the things that we are discussing related to the AI, the type of AI, history of AI, benefits of AI, how it all started, and where do we see current trends and developments happening within this field. What are the various applications of AI, and in what areas you will be looking at different sectors, just as an example where AI is being currently used. So it's a good article to read, which is about a half an hour read, but this will cover the learning outcome 2.1 in a great amount of detail.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
Yeah. I have always been knowing about AI, but when you learn into like details, it seems a bit strange
I think
for the human brain to understand,
correct. That is absolutely right. And I think what we do see as users is that we are more, aware of how we are using it from an end customer perspective. But how AI
Exactly.
started, originated, what developments are happening, what obviously this is also programming in the background, some sort of programming, logic related programming, which is being done. And say, for example, languages like Python and some of the other languages are also being used to create this code, which is then emulating human intelligence. So in the unit, we have to look at the background or go behind the scenes to be able to understand what is AI. What we do get to see when we use ChatGPT, Siri, Alexa, some of the applications that we are doing, when we talk about driverless cars and things like that, they are essentially what are end customer usages or applications that we get to use more often rather than the behind the scene information that we get.
Exactly. The perspective is different.
Different, yeah. Now, in the second assessment criteria, we're looking at how artificial intelligence is used. Now, this is a very generic area of discussion. There is AI currently being used in everything. When you look at maps, which came about in smartphones a couple of years back, so I think in 2012 or 2013, after the introduction of the iPhone, TomTom, essentially, which was a satellite navigation company, introduced maps, and Apple was using TomTom maps. Google came out with its own maps. But over the years, as you had seen that, Apple has now produced its own map. You're able to see 2D maps, 3D maps. You're able to, even look at street view in certain cases. These are all applications that we see how and where artificial intelligence is being used. So sometimes we take it for granted, but if we do look at some of the usages of applications that we are doing currently, they have clear examples of how artificial intelligence is being used. So things like facial recognition, is again a use of AI. I think if you look at how the evolution of smartphone has happened, it started off with a passcode, then it went into a biometric code, and slowly and gradually the biometric morphed into what is called facial recognition to unlock your phone apart from the code that you put in on the touchpad to be able to open the phone. So facial recognition and detection is also the use of AI, because when you look at how Apple has implemented its AI facial recognition, the camera on the phone essentially throws 30,000 rays to be able to detect your face. So if I have my eyes closed, it won't be able to open the phone. If I wear glasses and I've not done my training on how the facial recognition is done on the iPhone, it won't recognize me with the glasses. If I wear a mask, it won't. So there are bits and pieces that the software is able to learn by understanding your behavior. And as we see and its proliferation, that means its usage increasing by the day, we do see different types of ways in which artificial intelligence is being used. One of the features that we use ourselves is chatbots. So if you're on our website and you go onto the website and you click on that chatbot and ask a question, we are training continuously that chatbot on answering questions from our learners. It is able to give you very detailed and informed answers. Again, that has been programmed on the basis of certain database and information that we've fed into that chatbot, which allows, essentially it to bring out answers or answer your questions when asked. So these are various applications that we get to see where AI is being used: maps, face detection, recognition. You look at chatbots, digital assistants, social media, e-payments, and there are a host of others. They are just a few that I've listed here. There's a very good video that I would suggest what is AI to watch. This is, I think, a video produced by Tech Talks. It's a 3.5, 4 minute video, and I put the link here for the YouTube. Obviously, due to copyright licenses, I won't be playing this video on the session, but it's a very good video to watch because it will tell you how modern day implementation and usage of AI is happening in our day-to-day lives. And then in subsequent slides, I have picked out a few areas wherein we can relate to the usage of this that we get to see it on a day-to-day basis. So household names like Siri and Alexa are nothing but one form of AI, as I mentioned earlier. And that form of AI, which I had mentioned earlier, was the basic type of AI, which was narrow AI. Then we do see AI also being used in healthcare. So IBM Watson, which is a computer or a supercomputer developed by IBM, which is able to basically provide telesupport or telemedicine or advice and guidance on common illnesses, is called the IBM Watson. It is, again, a combination of how data and past knowledge, which has been fed using programming into the computer, which allows it to ask questions and derive the possible outcome of diseases or, for example, situations which humans are facing. And this particular part is the use of AI in healthcare. So IBM Watson is a very great example. If you look at AI being used in businesses, and an example that I've given is chatbots, which is on our website as well. The use of CRM software and the use of CRM software with integration of automation on emails, responding, to emails directly or creating drafts of it using email applications like Fryer.ai are, in examples of how artificial intelligence and its usage is currently being done in business or commercial purposes. You see this in finance and education. Obviously, we are using AI to a large extent to be able to generate content, data. We are using it for the purposes of assessments. We are using it for the purposes of, helping in
Learning.
research. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would be examples of how you would see AI being used in education. Now, again, there is a vast area that you can go ahead and see the application and usages of AI. I put in two articles here, specifically one on Wikipedia and the other primarily on a website. The reason I put this across is because these articles would give you a detailed understanding of where and how the AI is being deployed, specifically in internet and e-commerce models as virtual assistants. You look at calling a company, and the company takes you through a couple of options, option one, option two, and then it puts you onto a machine which will ask further questions. But the idea there is that it takes you through a process of finally letting you on to a human at some stage because it is not able to satisfy or meet all your requirements in terms of questions that you're raising. And that could be, programming of web assistants, chatbots, which could be used primarily to provide repetitive information in certain cases. And one such example that we get to see is when you call Vodafone or EE or any of the service providers, they take you through a bunch of options, option one, option two, option three, then further options. And then finally, you have somebody that you can speak to because here the basis of question answering is being done using a flow chart or a flow process, some sort of a decision making process which allows information to seamlessly flow. Now, if you need technical support, it'll ask you whether you need technical support on device, software, or anything else. If you are not falling within device or software, then you choose anything else, then something else would be asked. And the idea is to boil down to where the information is going to be useful for the candidate. And two articles that I've put up here, which I would briefly show you, essentially would allow you to read into a bit more detail for this learning outcomes assessment criteria. So what is AI? How AI works? It has been explained from a context of different businesses. There's a video as well. And then if you want to read in general the applications of AI, then this is a very good article which is on Wikipedia, and obviously gives you in-depth detail of how AI can be used and deployed within different fields, thereby automating and providing some part of the information in a proactive rather than reactive manner. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Now, the next assessment criteria that we have is basically going to be focused on understanding how is it benefiting society, right? Why do we say AI is good for humans? Now, there's a continuous debate happening that AI is not good for the industry or for certain businesses. And some people are proposing and backing AI because they say that it provides lots of advantages. So if we have to look at, a particular area in terms of what or what are the benefits, of AI to society, and if I have to look at, say, putting in a table, to explain this very quickly, there is one report which I would want you to go and read. There's a report by McKinsey which says that if AI is deployed properly in tandem with what companies do in terms of their functions, it will lead to potential $100 billion of saving annually for certain businesses and certain companies. Now, this particular report, which basically talks about giving details of how AI can benefit the society and what are the sectors in which AI can actually be deployed, is a good report to read, which has been written a couple of years back by McKinsey, one of the big, accounting organizations and research organizations. Now, again, this as a topic is quite big and diverse. I see usages of AI in every week of life in every sector. I can talk about healthcare, education, production, engineering, medicine, services, and all industries will use AI at some stage. But what you have to look at is talk about the benefits in terms of how it benefits the society in general, which is the use of AI, but the use of AI in terms of real world examples. So can you think of some examples where you think AI is being useful specifically in day-to-day life?
Education.
Okay, in education, that's the sector, but where do you see it is being used on a day-to-day basis?
I'm not sure what do you mean.
So one part is we understand that yes, it is useful. And the second part
Yeah,
is we understand that what sectors it can be useful in. So when you say
yeah.
it is useful, we know that it can help in doing repetitive
Maybe
tasks.
to read. Yeah,
And the sector is, in this case, when you mentioned is education. But in education, where do you think I can use AI or an
like I can
application
use
in
it
real world example?
like when you use it for learning, for asking questions, for
Correct. That is
uh
one example. Another example that you can think of would be translation, right? There are
yeah,
devices available that you can hook up to your ear, and these devices, if somebody's talking in Spanish, that device can, in real-time basis, translate Spanish into English or the language that you have set. And that would
yeah,
be, use of AI on in a real-time basis, wherein it is helping you to understand the context and how the other person is speaking in a different language, and by translating it into your own language. So this kind of use of AI, which can be done and is useful for people in real world situations, is where we would say it is benefiting the society. Like
yeah,
another example that I'll give you is if you are traveling abroad and you go as a tourist and you go and take a city tour, for example, and I've been to say Austria and Paris and a lot of other places, you take an open bus tour. First thing that they give you is a headphone come mic, headphone essentially, and you plug it into where you're sitting next to your seat. So the tourist guide will actually start talking about various things that the bus is going through or showing you. But in order for you to understand in your own language, what you do is you sometimes put this headphone, or sorry, this headphones into the jack, and that helps you translate by choosing into a language that you understand. So when you go to Paris, the bus or the tour guide will explain everything in French. But if you can't understand French, what you'll do is plug that earphone guide which has been given into the socket, and then choose a language, English, and it'll translate whatever they are saying into English so that you're able to understand better. Isn't it?
it's used also. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to say that another benefit would be in businesses when like it reduces costs of humans, of like salaries and yeah,
So one such example which you're saying is would be that when you look at deploying AI in the offices, for example, if it's a call center business, then the use of AI on the EPBX system to filter down to or narrow down the choices which the customer needs to make is also helping in saving time and building efficiency and productivity. It could be other things which you could be looking at is, for example, in education, one of the things which the tutors and lecturers would be doing is helping students do research using artificial intelligence, and that would make reading books and extracting information from articles quite easier. You could use this in healthcare as an example, and that could be when you look at the use of machines like MRI scanner, or some of these advanced tech which is used in medicine primarily to scan and detect for anomalies in human body. Things like detection of tumors for cancer could be one such way of looking at how the software is able to scan the human body and detect where are the tumors, and where these tumors are proliferating into cancer.
yeah,
Now there are loads of it. Again, there's a video which I've put up here from YouTube, which is basically a person talking about what are the benefits of AI to society, and I would suggest that you watch this particular video to get a detailed insight into what I'm wanting to cover when we talk about benefits to society. Now, the next criteria talks about what are the concerns which people have in relation to artificial intelligence. Now, there are lots and lots of people and two sides of the coin. A lot of people are saying it's very beneficial. A lot of people are saying it will be harmful in the long run. So, two sides of the coin in terms of understanding why AI can be concerning as far as usages and deployment to human functions or human related activities is concerned. Now, one of the things which AI can do, as I mentioned earlier, is that when we do talk about the use of AI, and if the AI becomes super intelligent and is able to use NLP, natural language processing, deep learning, and reasoning, and is able to then do scientific debate with you, then is when you would see that AI is becoming a threat, or sometimes, people are saying it's an existential threat to the human race, because AI by 2030, when it becomes super intelligent and can do everything which humans do, then in such cases it will start to control human activity. Now, what we need to be able to do is put this into a context in terms of where we see risks of artificial intelligence. Now, there is another article which I would suggest that you need to look at. And this particular article talks about the risks of artificial intelligence in terms of risks specifically to safety and in general, for example, I would say how it can prove to be dangerous to humans in general. So there's a perspective of that which has been shared by this particular article, and I would suggest that this is something that you need to read. Obviously, we can go through the details of it, but I would still suggest that reading this would give you more idea in terms of why this is, as a, I would say, as a question even being debated, that
Yeah.
what could be the risks or concerns which AI could raise. Now, again, a slightly older article, but this again would give you a perspective of what all areas AI is being used and looked at from a point of view of raising, concerns.
Yeah.
Now, going back to the slide, and what I want to do is, now, over the years, obviously, before AI came into play, there were lots and lots of myths which people had. Myths are basically, beliefs which people think that can do or this can happen. A lot of people debate that AI is going to take eat away into 70 million jobs. But let's also look at the reverse side of the coin, is that it is also going to help in creation of 100 million jobs. So this is a myth that AI is going to take over human race, which is probably not the case. It will take over what are called repetitive and mundane functions which humans do on a day-to-day basis. So there are some myths which obviously are circulating about what artificial intelligence can do, but things like job replacement or displacement, we talk about privacy issues, we talk about bias and discrimination, we talk about lack of transparency, security risks, which sometimes softwares can pose. One of the things which is being talked about, which is called loss of human control,
Yeah.
which essentially means that at some stage, if AI becomes super intelligent, then it can become unpredictable. It is not going to cause any major harm, but outcomes from AI can become unpredictable because at the end of the day, it's programming. If the programming is faulty, it can lead to a different kind of an output. And then
Yes.
the most important risk which people are talking about is dependence of humans on AI. Now, as we have seen over the years, personally, I can see if I go back 20 years, I used to remember all the phone numbers by heart. I used to have an address book in which I was used to maintain phone numbers. And when I show it to my kids, they say, "What is this, Dad?" This is like, wow, did you write your numbers in this address book? And this is the way.
Yeah.
So they haven't seen something like this when I show them A, B, C, and this was an address book. Or you had a telephone directory because you can look for numbers. So
Yeah.
today, what is happening is that I can't even remember 10 numbers for my parents, my missus, and my kids and everything. And this is because we've become dependent on technology. So one of the major risks which AI poses is that once you get used to using technology, your dependence on technology would increase. And over reliance on AI or technology would reduce critical thinking and cognitive thinking skills in humans, which is what is seen to be the biggest threat which AI can actually pose to humans. If you recall 20 years back when you were driving, I don't know whether you were driving, but I was driving 20 years back, I could remember the routes and we used to look at the maps and everything. But today, everything you go or every place that you plan to travel to, you just put the GPS code in it and you follow the GPS or the global positioning system and the guide it gives to be able to go across to that location. And sometimes it takes you to the wrong location because you have not put it right. So over dependence on technology could be the biggest risk. And I think that is where what you'll have to look at is talk about the various types of concerns which AI could actually bring as far as humankind or usage by humans are concerned. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there are lots and lots of different things that we can talk about in the context of, um, uh, you know, uh, the future of AI. And when we do talk about the future of AI, essentially what we would be looking at is talking about how it is going to be obviously shaping, the usage by, for example, humans in the future. So when we do talk about where it can be deployed in the future, there are lots of good TED Talks, which I would suggest that you need to watch and look at. So Sundar Pichai, who's the CEO of Google, and a lot of other speakers, Sam Altman, for example, the CEO of OpenAI, have given different perspectives of how artificial intelligence is going to benefit the humankind and how some of the things that we do carry out on a day-to-day basis would become things of the past. And this is where what we need to discuss when we do talk about explain how AI could be useful or beneficial, for humans in the future. So this particular task looks at you going into and thinking about various sectors that you are interested in. And I have given some examples of transportation, manufacturing, healthcare, education, media, customer service. But my suggestion would be pick out one sector and do a bit of reading to see what could be the areas where AI is going to benefit, this particular sector or this particular, aspect of human functioning. So if I
Yeah.
do talk about transportation, autonomous cars and self-driving cars are the future, right? That could mean
Yeah.
there would be some advantages, some disadvantages. So driverless cars would mean that you'd have robotic cars, and if you look at some of the movies, which were obviously produced a couple of years back, Arnold Schwarzenegger's movie wherein he travels to Mars, if you recall, and he drives a robo taxi, and he says, okay, he lands up at the airport and he lands up in Mars essentially and wants to go from one location to the other. So those are things that you would get to see in terms of innovation, which AI would facilitate. But in general, what I would suggest is pick out one sector and then look at where is the technology taking you and where do you think usages of AI could be beneficial to the humankind. So again, there are three articles which I've suggested that I put here up on the slide. And these three articles would give you a very good perspective of what is the future of AI, and how do you think the AI could benefit, humankind. And that is what I would suggest that you need to look at, from a point of view of reading these further
Yeah.
articles. Is that okay? And that would help
Yeah.
you get some perspective of what are the benefits of AI, or at least these technical benefits of AI that we are going to get to see being, discussed with regards to this assessment criteria. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
good stuff. So I have put some information obviously in some places, but again, this particular outcome about AI is all about reading and obviously picking out your area, which will then be looking at when you do the assignment at a later stage. You'll be looking at actually picking out that area which you have read, whether it's transportation, whether it's production, manufacturing, education, healthcare. That area you would use because you've done a lot of reading. You would use those as examples to be able to bring out in your assignment from a point of view of discussing about the usages, the benefits, the potential harms of AI, or talking in relation to concerns which AI could have as far as humans are concerned.
Yeah. The impact of it as a whole,
Correct.
not only the benefits and the 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 concerns.
Yes. So that brings us to the end of today's discussion. Obviously, a bit of reading in this learning outcome, but what I would suggest is it is a 3-4 hour reading that you need to do. Something which is not very difficult to understand is something that you'll be able to understand pretty much straight away because this is a hot topic. which currently everybody is discussing, and there's a lot of information available. The more you read, the more understanding you will get on this particular learning outcome, which is understanding the use of AI in society in general.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So that brings us to the end of today's session. I'm going to see you tomorrow to discuss learning outcome 3. And if you think of any questions, or if you bring out any new articles or new sites where you would find some useful information, do let me know and pass it to my way as well for my reading. But at the same time, if there are any questions which come up, then we can discuss those tomorrow before we start the session, before we start the discussion on learning outcome 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I have a question regarding the assignment, the
Yes,
first
go ahead.
assignment of cybersecurity.
Yes.
Is there a certain deadline for it, or it's open, or how you said 2 weeks.
I would suggest that you have, as I mentioned to you earlier, I normally recommend learners to complete and submit the assignment within 2 weeks, because when you're fresh with everything in terms of what you've read, what we have discussed, it would become easier for you to do the assignment. But if you leave it for a greater amount of time than 2 weeks, then sometimes you have to revisit the text and the matter which was discussed. So assignment submissions I would say, goes hand in hand with what you're studying. And if you do feel that after the completion of this unit that you need a bit more time to be able to submit assignment, then what I would do is basically do a 1-week break in the middle, so that it allows you to complete the assignments for both the units and submit before we start the delivery of the 3rd unit. So it can be flexible in terms of how you submit and when you submit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Does it answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, no worries.
Thank you.
Good stuff. So I will then see you tomorrow, and we'll take it from there.